few more people might join us as we go, but let's get started for our brave work this morning. Some of us may have been around bonfires or smaller fires, campfires, opportunities to share some of the sparks that have been flying for us. And one thing that struck me in those conversations that I've been having is the difference it makes when people take that brave step of not just sharing what they're doing out in the world around them, but also some of what has happened in their own internal world, in their story, in their values, and in the ways that those connect. And that connection between our outer world, our inner world, and the brave ways that we can make those connections stronger is something we're going to be exploring together today. And hopefully we'll link lots of different parts of the Creative Bravery Festival for you. So the Creative Bravery Festival is now in its 4th day, and we are loving seeing all the different connections being made through that time. Today there are 4 of us that are contributing to your session. So I'm Claire Young. I'm going to ask Lorna to give a quick shout and hello.
Hi there.
We also have Julia as one of the quartet.
Hi everyone.
And Karen too.
Hi there.
And in a couple of minutes, each of us is just going to share a little nugget or snippet of what it is that the inner work of creative bravery means for us or has sparked for us, and share a few of the people, ideas, experiences that have inspired us, so that you can then hopefully tune in and think about what resonates, what's different, what sticks, what you would change, and have some time to reflect for yourself on that inner work of creative bravery. This is a space that we want to work for you, so please do get the balance right as to when you want to be on screen, when you might prefer to turn your camera off. If you need to rush to kind of grab a cup of coffee or take a break for a moment, then that's okay too. Take it as works for you, and also show up in a way that feels right and honours the reasons that you are here today. And as an invitation for that, I am going to read a poem by Mikey Scott Bay Jones called An Invitation to Brave Space. Together we will create brave space, because there's no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and to continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. This space will not be perfect. We will not always be what we wish to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So thank you for joining this brave space with us. Alongside the time that we have together today, there will be an opportunity to touch base with some different resources in the tool shed, and also to join in the conversation that'll be happening from 8 o'clock this evening, and others in the collaborative space. So do jump back to the Creative Bravery website to visit those parts of the festival. This session is going to be recorded so that the thinking and the sharing in it can be put up and accessed later. We won't be showing any individual speakers. We won't be recording any of the breakout rooms, but there's the email there to fire any queries or questions too. Does anyone have anything they want to ask about that recording before we carry on in? Okay, so welcome to this brave space. I would invite you for a moment just to have a look around the room and to acknowledge the people that are here with us. Send yourself some appreciation for showing up with them, and send them some appreciation for showing up with you. And I'm going to invite Lorna to talk us through the sparks of her creative bravery. Over to you, Lorna. I'll just find your slide.
Thank you. Well, my name is Lorna Brown and I live in Edinburgh. I am I guess you could say I have a portfolio of interests. Among other things, I'm a counsellor and an artist and a teacher. And up on the screen, I've got a quote by Bessel van der Kolk, and people can learn and control and change their behaviour only if they feel safe enough to experiment with new solutions. And the interesting combination and sort of, I suppose, unconventional way of working that I live in has allowed me to wonder and consider creative bravery, as well, I suppose, as start to live that day to day. And inspired by the work of several writers, including Bessel van der Kolk and Paul Gilbert, I've become more and more interested in fear. How our bodies and our minds react when we are afraid of something, and what we can do next, and what we can do about fear. And this has led me to working with adults and kids to recognize their own fears and to sit with those fears, and eventually enabling them to embody, in the words of Susan David, that courage is fear walking. I'll say that again. Courage is fear walking. These journeys have both been moving and impressive to witness, and watching people make changes in their lives and ultimately being creatively brave. So that's a little tiny snippet of what I've been going through, and I'm going to pass it over to Claire so she can talk a bit about her journey.
So I am now a high school teacher here in Edinburgh, and also a parent. From a young age, that Mahatma Gandhi quote of being the change you wish to see in the world has really stuck with me. So I founded my high school's Amnesty International group. My mum and sister used to kind of expect me to end up on a Greenpeace boat somewhere in the ocean protesting the world, and I've ended up in our school system instead, because I love the opportunity to work with young people and genuinely believe that that they can bring amazing change in the world. I'm now 12 years into this career, and one thing that I have been initially surprised by and I'm now embracing is that this being the change I wish to see in the world is not all about what is outside around me. Like, I feel like I've grown up with a lot of messages about it's about impact, it's about product, it's about what you can see and what you can take a picture of and show other people, and that's change, is the number of people on a street marching, and the number of laws that are better, and the number of ways in which people's lives improve, and that is all absolutely true and important. What I've learned, though, is to sustain any kind of bravery, particularly in systems which carry heavy histories of exploitation and hurt in them, is that I really have to spend a lot of time inside doing this inner work of courage and bravery as well. And interestingly, I've read a few articles recently which claim this is not a Gandhi quote. It's misattributed, and what he did say was, if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. And this is something I'm really quite fascinated by, both from my own experience and from looking around the world, is this way in which a process which is all about energy in the world, the outside world, is missing a crucial piece or missing a crucial part, and that kind of looking within ourselves, whether it be doing the work of understanding unconscious bias, which needs a lot of care and attention, whether it be the work of self-compassion so that we can show up and not overly judge ourselves and so not overly judge others, whether it be the work of mindfulness to be able to stay in the moment rather than be forever caught up in all of the information and messages around us, and just that kind of truth and clarity on what your values are, what your North Star is, and how you're going to move towards it. As a teacher, I think quite a lot about how much I've had to unlearn from things that I think were unconsciously taught to me through the system. And I'm really passionate about thinking about how can I make my room a place where young people are learning from the start the importance of that inner journey alongside all of the beauty and excitement of their outer journeys. So that's something for me, and I'm going to pass over to Julia to share some of the the sparks that make this topic alive for her.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, my name is Julia Fenby. I've got a personal passion and interest in physical and mental health and well-being, and that combines with my life work in creativity in the arts and design and education to what I do now, which is work with colleagues in Education Scotland and Creative Scotland and across the country with colleagues to promote creativity in teaching and learning. So this is a lovely opportunity to bring everything together. And I wanted to share a couple of quotes from books that I've found inspiring. And this first one you may be familiar with, Elizabeth Gilbert. This is a great book, and she talks a lot about her own creativity and how she has to work to sort of find those creative moments. And she talks about creative living beginning with courage, and she talks about fear and creativity. She almost personifies them, and she's even written a letter to fear, which is quite entertaining, where she invites it on a road trip with her and creativity, and she invites it along, but there are clear boundaries, and fear is going to be there but not allowed to make any decisions. So it'll only be her and creativity that make the decisions. And I think it's a great way to acknowledge that actually fear is a part of us being creative, and without a bit of fear, perhaps we wouldn't take the creative steps. So the next book I wanted to share in the next slide, if you could move it on, Claire.
Yes, my computer's going slightly slow. It will.
Oh, that's all right, thank you. It's from Tom and David Kelly from IDEO in the States, who talk about creative confidence. Their book's called Creative Confidence. And they, in the book, they refer to a survey that they or was carried out within a company in the States, where they interviewed employees about their own creativity and did some tests to sort of explore how creative they were. And they found that the only thing that differentiated them, the employees, they were all creative people, the only thing that differentiated them was that some of them believed they were more creative and some of them were more confident about their creativity. So it said a lot about self-belief and getting over that fear. And they also talk about that fear can paralyze our creativity. And the second quote on this slide expresses that really well. So yeah, so we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to now pass on to Karen to talk about some of her experiences.
Thank you, Julia, for that. I think in coming together, the group of us all had an interest around this, and it's really interesting to see the different ways and the different dimensions that have come in there. And for me, I think one of the kind of influences as I've gone through this journey of the inner work that you need to be brave and to take action, it comes from Krisnamurti, and he talks a lot in many of his lectures, an Indian kind of spiritual leader, I suppose. He talks about his secret, and the secret that he has is about that he doesn't mind what happens. And that sounds quite simple, but I think that it's very relevant now when we think about some of the ways that we would like to make changes, or the things we'd like to do, and the sense of how things could be different, and we need to take a step. But if we have a really sort of clear idea of the outcome of what that might be, particularly around complex issues. And I do a lot of work around facilitating collective leadership within the government. And if we have a very sort of fixed notion of what that outcome has to be, we lose, I think we lose a lot but I think we were filled with fear in terms of not achieving that outcome, and therefore we don't step forward. So for me, a lot of the work that I've had to do, I think, is about trying to approach situations that are, you know, where you're wanting to be brave, with an idea of recognizing where the fear and anxiety sits within my body, stopping and being prepared to go forward with not minding what happens. And as one of the organizers of this festival, I think we've all felt that sense of fear. What's going to happen? Is anyone going to come there? And actually having to sit with that and thinking, we have done what we can, and we open the doors and see where we go. And when we take that kind of attitude, or in my experience, when we have that kind of attitude, it opens up possibilities. Having a very fixed outcome closes them down. So that's just one of the kind of things that has been really helpful, but it's not easy. It's not easy to sit and not do anything. It's actually really hard work. So I'm going to, you know, I think we're hoping that you've kind of got something from our different perspectives in terms of that. And then I'm going to pass to Julia, who's going to lead us in our first exercise. Thank you. You're on mute, Julia.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, so we now invite you to reflect on the thoughts that we've just shared, and reflect on your own experiences, and grab some paper. We invite you to respond to 5 different questions that I'm going to feed in one every couple of minutes for the next 10 minutes, and invite you to respond however you'd like to, whether it's writing, drawing, whatever works for you. So the first question we'd like you to think about is, what have you heard that has resonated for you? I think we're all going to join in.
I'm going to write these in the chat box for you.
Okay, the next question to think about is, when have you tried to be creatively brave? When have you tried to be creatively brave? And next question, when you've been being creatively brave, what are the things that helped you? So what helped you? Next question. Now thinking about when you've tried to be creatively brave, what anxieties or fears or doubts stopped you? Okay, and then finally, last question, what else is bubbling up for you right now? Or what is bubbling up for you right now as a result of thinking about this? Okay. I hate to interrupt. It looks like people are still writing and drawing, but we need to keep moving. So we are going to have a full group conversation, but before we do that, we're going to invite you to go into small breakout rooms to reflect on the activity that you've just done and to share with each other.
So we had some great conversations in our group, and we've got a few minutes now. I wondered if anybody heard something in their group that they'd like to share with the rest of us.
Lindsay was just sort of saying something in our group that I think was incredibly valuable to hear, which is about how much creatives do that make do, find a way, find themselves actually maybe when they want to be collaborative but have restricted resources, kind of not find ways, but that good kind of goodwill thing, but also that recognition that skills in other sectors can't just be done without, you know, quality. I mean, Lindsay can speak for herself, but I thought what she was saying was superb.
Yeah, I just said that what I found interesting and what came up when I did the task, the writing task, is that I thought I was being creatively brave in the past because I was always finding ways to make things work and find ways to get around barriers that I always felt I had. But I actually realised that I wasn't being creatively brave to speak up, to say, actually, we need to have a little bit more resources, or we need a little bit more recognition for the other art form that we're almost adopting, even though my domain is dance. If we're going to be doing that, we need to be really collaborating and giving that other art form justice. So it's that moment of whenever in the past I've kind of done it out of my goodwill, or kind of go, okay, let's make it work out of thin air, or find creative solutions around challenges and problems. I've realised I've probably felt like I was being brave, but what I really need to do is be brave to speak up about creativity on the whole and art forms of being equal. Don't know if that helps.
That's great. Thanks, Lindsay. Does anybody else have any thoughts or anything else they wanted to share?
I think there were quite a number of people that were talking about bravery to a point, but then lots of new departures and adventures. So actually working out, arriving at a place, and that it opens another door. So people talking about shifting the setting that they were working in, or opening up work in a whole new area, for instance, with an LEA as opposed to a smaller company. And I think there might be a certain amount of working within, I suppose, a closed idea of a setting, and then a very important idea of opening new worlds, and kind of, from my point of view, treating them like Venn diagrams and thinking more like that would be a lovely thing.
Thank you, Naomi.
I mean, Naomi, you were also talking about that thing of kind of, you know, that charm offensive of getting people on side, or at least knowledgeable about what it is that you are doing, and that it isn't that you could just drop the finger paints and the glitter pens and immediately run and do somebody else's admin for them. You know, I think that was really very telling. I had a similar thing with a colleague this week who just presumes that if we took our theatre building here and put a panto on it, that would resolve all its financial difficulties.
The way I recorded that thought in the writing exercise was, it's like an inverse Emperor's New Clothes. You know, so if you're willing to see and to listen and to risk thinking in a different way, then we can work better together. But finding the time and encouraging the other person's inclination to do that is, well, it requires bravery, and it also requires stepping up and returning to try that conversation over and again.
Yeah. Yes, the iteration is really critical.
We talked a bit in our group about sort of how collaboration is quite an important part of creativity, and how that can be more difficult at the moment because maybe the modes that we had for collaborating aren't as possible in a digital way.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that as well, just about how you can't do anything on your own. And I had kind of come to the conclusion that you couldn't, that online meetings were fine for keeping things going, but you couldn't do anything new. And then I realised that we'd built this festival completely online, and we haven't really met any of the people involved in it. And I realised that was complete nonsense, absolute nonsense. So I think that's a mindset thing.
I've also learned that you don't need to be indoors to be doing these things. So I've learned from both Ruth and Lorna that you can engage with these calls while you're cycling a bike or walking in Holyrood Palace. So, you know, I think that we seem to think we need to be sitting at a desk or in our homes when we log on to these things, but we don't. So I'm going to be brave and join in with one of the sessions while I'm outdoors as opposed to indoors.
We were talking, well, yeah, there were some discussions in our group around, yeah, the kind of do you know how creative bravery can look like? It's all this outward stuff and all of this kind of like big projects, big shifts, big movements. And the thing that kind of came up that was shared at the beginning about how often it's the inner stuff that maybe isn't so visible, that is just as important and is where kind of change often comes from, and that kind of balance between having real uninterrupted time alone to just be not distracted and just to kind of like be with what's there, and then to kind of meet that with like allies and really passionate, supportive people who really meet that idea and fear, and you know, where you can kind of step into that together.
I love that. I just wonder if I can share a quote that I noted from Elizabeth Gilbert, which is about exactly what you just talked about. And she says it's a question of changing your gaze. The first moment the idea comes to you, it's not a thunderous voice, it's a tiny voice. It's about following your curiosity instead of waiting for a big moment of passion. I really liked that because it's about actually just listen to your own intuition.
Yeah, and that also makes me think of like how often the idea comes in such a small voice, but then I make it way too big, way too fast, and then get way too scared to start and really overwhelmed by it. You know, either it's too small to even be worth doing, or it's too big to ever be possible. And that's the bit where like the creative bravery, I think, really comes in, of like really talking yourself back to where you are right now with the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So we're coming to the end of our session, unfortunately. It's always the same with these sessions. We're getting into the sort of heart of things, but it is just the start, and there's always potential for where we take these things in the future. But we're just going to stop with another poem. So just asking you to, you know, just get yourself comfortable, and we just take a moment and a minute to just sit and be, and to thank you all for attending this session. It's been really interesting, and we're going to finish with Rumi and the Guest House, which some of you might be familiar with. So we'll finish with that and just enjoy the rest of your day. But just for a moment, this being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So go bravely and enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you enjoy some other events at the festival, and the cafes are good opportunities in the evening at 8 o'clock and in the morning at 8:15 to chat about any of this and think about what helps us be creatively brave in our work and our life. So thank you very much from all of us.